On a January night in 1943, outside Dijon, a woman named Claire Moreau is standing beside a freight siding with a bicycle she has no reason to ride. The bicycle is her cover. The tool bag is her permission to be there. And the small metal thing inside her coat is the reason a German locomotive will not finish its journey. It is smaller than a lunch tin. It is dark, flat, and cold against her palm. It cost Britain less than a pair of work boots to make. But if Claire places it correctly, it can do what a squadron of bombers often could not. It can take a locomotive out of the war without announcing that a saboteur was ever there. She has walked this siding for 6 weeks. She knows which guard smokes under the signal gantry. She knows which one counts footsteps when he is nervous. She knows the minute when the yard goes quiet enough for one person to disappear inside ordinary movement. She does not know the engineering tables. She does not know the British code name. She does not know the number of trains this kind of device has already stopped. She knows only the instruction that matters. Touch steel. Leave. Do not look back. The British problem in occupied Europe was not courage. It was scale. By 1942, German supply lines ran like iron veins from factories, depots, ports, fuel dumps, and ammunition yards into every front Germany needed to feed. A bridge could be blown and repaired. A length of track could be cut and replaced. A signal box could burn at midnight and be operating again by next afternoon. The railway system was built to survive damage. That was the problem. Every traditional act of sabotage demanded time in the open. Men had to cut, dig, carry, set, wire, hide, wait. The longer they worked, the more they became the target instead of the railway. And in France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and beyond, German security learned quickly. Roadblocks hardened, patrols doubled, informers multiplied, safe houses went cold. A resistance worker who spent 10 minutes beside a bridge was not just risking arrest. He was risking the entire circuit behind him. So the British asked a colder question. What if the target was not the track? What if the railway could be made to destroy the thing it could not run without? The locomotive, not the rails, not the bridge, not the station clock, the engine. Because a broken rail was labor, a broken locomotive was industry. A German freight engine was not a disposable object. It was steel, boiler work, skilled labor, machine tools, inspection time, and weeks of production. It could pull fuel, shells, food, trucks, spare parts, men. It was a moving piece of the war economy. When one went missing, everything behind it waited. When several went missing, the timetable began to rot. And when nobody could explain why they were failing, the damage became bigger than the wreck. The answer came from a strange British workshop hidden behind wartime secrecy. Officially, it was research. Unofficially, it was one of the most useful rooms in the war. The place belonged to MD1, the unconventional weapons shop protected by Churchill and driven by men like Major Millis Jefferis and Stuart McCrae. The people around it called the inventions Churchill's toys, but there was nothing childish about them. They were built around one rule. Do not ask a small underground network to fight like an army. Give it something an army cannot easily see. The engineers at MD1 understood that a sabotage device did not need to be dramatic. It needed to be patient. It needed to be cheap. It needed to be simple enough for frightened hands in the dark, and deceptive enough that the enemy would explain the damage to himself incorrectly. That last part mattered most. Across Europe, railway workers already knew fog signals. small warning devices placed on rails to alert train crews. They belonged to the railway world. They did not look like a secret weapon. They looked like routine. So MD1 built a darker cousin of that idea, a compact magnetic charge, a delay mechanism sealed inside, a casing that did not scream danger to a man with a torch, a weapon that did not need the agent to remain near the target. It did not make a crater in the track. It waited, and then it made the locomotive look guilty. Claire does not know all of that. Her world is smaller. A forged railway pass, a lamp with a cracked glass lens, a work coat that smells of grease, a folded strip of paper she has already burned because remembering the route is safer than carrying it. Her controller called the device a rail limpet. That was not the official name. It was just the name that stuck because it clung to steel like a sea creature clings to a rock. The first time she held one, she thought it felt too small to matter. That was the point. A bridge charge looked like sabotage. A heavy bag of explosives looked like sabotage. A woman with a bicycle and a tool roll did not. At 0218, she reaches the edge of the siding. The locomotive is waiting under blackout conditions, half hidden by steam and coal smoke. Its number plate is smeared with oil. One lamp burns low near the yard office. Beyond it, two German guards are talking too loudly because quiet men hear too much. Claire moves as if she belongs there. Not fast, not slow, just bored enough to be invisible. That is the strange courage of railway sabotage. Not charging a machine gun, not shouting in the street, not dying with a weapon in hand. It is doing a terrifying thing at the speed of routine. She kneels beside the engine. For a moment, her whole life narrows to the cold shape under her glove. If the guard turns, she is a saboteur. If he does not, she is maintenance. The difference is one lantern beam. She reaches under the dark metal. There is no speech, no dramatic last thought, no music, only the smallest sound in the yard, a soft click. The magnet has found steel. She withdraws her hand, closes the tool bag, and stands. 90 seconds. That is all the war sees of her. But the device has longer work to do. Before weapons like this, railway sabotage often burned the people who performed it faster than it burned the supply line. A demolished rail could stop traffic for hours. A destroyed bridge could stop traffic for days. But both told the Germans where to look. A damaged locomotive changed the investigation. If an engine failed 30 miles from the yard, the first questions were not always political. Was the axle fatigued? Was the bearing worn? Had the crew missed an inspection? Had the workshop rushed a repair? Was the metal itself flawed? Every wrong question bought time, and time was the real explosive, because a locomotive under suspicion did not haul freight. An inspector lying on cold ballast with a hand lamp did not guard a bridge. A security officer writing angry reports did not move ammunition. A depot chief checking every underside by hand did not increase throughput. One small device could create 3 forms of damage: the wreck, the delay, and the doubt. The doubt was the part no bombing map could show. At 0440, the freight leaves Dijon. Its cargo is not glamorous. Fuel drums, vehicle tires, machine parts packed in wooden crates. The dull matter of an army trying to keep moving. War stories love battles. Railways feed them. A division cannot attack if its fuel is late. A gun cannot fire if its shells are still in a yard. A tank is not a weapon when the spare part that keeps it alive is 60 miles behind schedule. That is why locomotives mattered. They were not symbols, they were muscles. The train moves east under a gray winter sky. past switch towers and frozen fields, past villages where curtains shift as it goes by. The crew feels nothing unusual. The guards in the wagons feel nothing. The papers are stamped. The route is cleared. The system believes in itself. And then, just after sunrise, near a curve cut through a low wooded rise, the engine convulses. Not like a bomb falling from the sky, like a machine betraying its own weight. The drive assembly tears wrong. The frame twists. The locomotive throws itself sideways and drags the first wagons after it. Fuel drums burst. Crates split open. Steel screams against stone. Then everything stops in a shape the timetable does not understand. By the time the German report begins, Claire is already back in Dijon, washing grease from her hands in a basin behind a baker's kitchen. She will not hear the crash. She will not see the wreck. For weeks, she will not even know whether the device worked. That was another cruelty of this kind of war. The best sabotage gave no applause to the person who survived it. The first German explanation was mechanical failure. That was reasonable. Locomotives did fail. Bearings overheated. Frames cracked. Wartime maintenance was rushed. Materials were stretched. Crews were tired. Workshops were overloaded. And the rail limpet fed that explanation. It attacked the machine in a way that encouraged engineers to blame the machine. That made it more dangerous. Because once a command believes the enemy is everywhere, it sends soldiers. But once it believes the machines themselves may be failing, it sends inspectors, memoranda, committees, depot orders, repair schedules, and nervous men with lamps. The occupation could guard against a bomb. It had a harder time guarding against uncertainty. Soon the orders changed. More patrols near yards, more inspections under engines, more questions for French railway workers, more delays before departure, more engines held back for checks that found nothing, more angry reports asking why perfectly good machines were being taken out of service by problems nobody could reproduce. This was the hidden victory of a small weapon. Not just that trains crashed, that trains waited. A locomotive delayed for an inspection was not moving artillery. A line blocked by a wreck was not moving fuel. A maintenance crew sent to chase imaginary fatigue was not repairing real damage elsewhere. A security detachment assigned to watch a siding was not hunting a radio operator across town. One device could turn German efficiency against itself. It made the system pay for certainty, and in logistics, certainty is expensive. The British loved that equation. A bomber raid required airfields, crews, fuel, weather, navigation, aircraft, bombs, and luck. Even when it succeeded, German railway repair teams often knew what had happened and where to begin. But a pocket-sized device placed by one trained civilian could force a different kind of loss, a loss that looked, at first, like bad metal, or bad maintenance, or bad luck. That ambiguity was worth almost as much as the explosion, because every empire depends on confidence in its own routine. The train will leave, the bridge will hold, the engine will pull, the forms will tell the truth. The next yard will be ready. Break that confidence, and the empire does part of your work for you. It slows itself down to check its own heartbeat. Claire places 2 more devices that winter. The second one disappears into silence. No rumor comes back. The third delays an ammunition train long enough that its cargo is rerouted twice and arrives too late for the schedule it was meant to serve. No medal follows. No photograph. No public record with her name correctly spelled. A man in London may see a line in a report. A railway clerk may hear that another engine has been pulled for inspection. A German officer may curse the French workshops. But Claire remains what most resistance workers remained, a missing signature under a visible consequence. That was how the arithmetic had to work. Small acts, low exposure, large administrative damage, not bravery wasted in theatrical destruction. Bravery converted into pressure. The device did not need to smash the entire railway. It only needed to make each locomotive slightly less trustworthy than it had been the day before. A few wrecks did that. A few unexplained failures did more. A few recovered devices did something else entirely. They told the Germans the failures were not accidental, and that meant the next failure might be anywhere. From that point on, a locomotive was no longer just a locomotive. It was a question. Who had touched it? When? Where? Had the underside been checked? Had the yard been watched? Was the worker with the lamp really a worker? Was the delay a delay? Or the thing that prevented a wreck? That is the strange power of sabotage done precisely. The physical damage is only the first wound. The second wound is procedural. The third is psychological. The fourth is invisible on the map because it lives inside every decision the enemy now makes more slowly. Years later, people would remember the big weapons more easily. The heavy bombers, the tanks, the landings, the huge machinery of liberation. They should. But wars also turn on smaller objects. A forged pass, a dim lamp, a bicycle leaned against a fence, a tin-sized charge hidden in a coat, a woman who can make fear look like routine for 90 seconds in the dark. Claire never needed to see the locomotive fall. That was the genius of the weapon and the burden of the person using it. She had to trust the physics, trust the timing, trust the workshop she had never seen, trust that a soft click in a cold railway yard could matter more than any sound she would ever hear from the crash. On the morning after the Dijon wreck, German engineers write that the engine failed from structural fatigue. They are not entirely wrong. Something was fatigued: the metal, the timetable, the inspection system, the confidence that every moving part of the occupation still belonged to the occupier. Claire is served coffee in a back room and told nothing. She warms her hands around the cup. There is black grease under one fingernail. She scrapes it away with her thumb. Outside, trains still move, but not with quite the same certainty. That was the mathematics, not explosion against empire, doubt against motion. A device small enough to disappear in a work coat made an army question its own wheels. It did not just derail a train, it taught the war to slow itself down.